From the KDLM studios in Detroit Lakes, it's Hodge Podge with Carol McCarthy, presented by Partnership for Health, and now airing on TV3.
Welcome to Hodge Podge, this 5th day of June, 2019, first Wednesday of the month. Today on Hodge Podge, a couple guests joining me in the studio. A little bit later, we'll be talking to Becky Mitchell, who is the director of the Becker County Museum. She'll update us on things going on at the museum as we head into the summer months. I know she's got a robotic camp going on this week. We'll hear more about that and maybe an update on the museum project to build a new museum. So that's just ahead on Hodge Podge this Wednesday morning. But first, we've got Steve Skoog from Becker County Environmental Services joining me in the studio this morning. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Carol.
Well, we are into the summer. Summer has hit us head on here, hot and sticky, but also a time people I've noticed are getting out almost maybe twice a week now with the grass growth and the storms moving through, picking up sticks and heading out to the yard waste and compost sites.
Yes, now it's a season now for compost and taking care of the yard waste. You know, the county has the cities have a number of compost sites around Detroit Lakes. Mm-hmm. There's one north on 59 off Stony Road, and there's at our transfer station we also take yard waste and brush and debris and that kind of thing. Down south of town, Lakeview has a compost site down near Lake Sally, as well as if you go to the Becker County website and look at environmental services, we have a map showing where all the various yard waste sites are around the county, as well as recycling sites.
Are you ever going to, how do you determine where to put yard waste sites? It's just on county property?
Usually we work that out with other local units of governments, usually townships and cities, and they sponsor those.
Oh, okay. So. All right, that's good to know. So are you looking at any new yard waste sites in the near future?
You know, that's one of the things, believe it or not, we're always looking for.
Right.
We don't have enough of them around here now. It's hard to site them.
Okay. Because the compost sites, I know that I think I've used it a couple times where I've actually gotten the compost and taken it to my yard, to my gardens, and made, I've used up the compost in my little compost bin, but you need more for gardening. But people are sure welcome to take that, huh?
Absolutely. Most of these yard waste sites, there's a pile that looks like black dirt or compost. Yep. They're welcome to take all that they can shovel off into their means of how they're going to transport it. Or if they need a larger quantity and they don't want to shovel it, they can come out to our transfer station and our staff will load a vehicle or a pickup or whatever, trailer. There will be a charge associated with that, but you can get a large quantity for a pretty reasonable price.
Okay. And then what do you do with all the branches and shrubbery and bush kind of stuff that gets compiled at those sites?
Well, we'll either burn it, or in the past we've also ground it.
Oh, okay.
And turned it into compost or sold it or other means of getting rid of it.
All right, Steve Skoog from Becker County Environmental Services in the studio with me this morning, talking about some of the things offered through environmental services, including the compost and yard waste sites around the county, various sites. Also, Steve, let's talk about the recycling program, of course, going gangbusters, and the business single stream recycling, too, is now available.
It is. We've really expanded our recycling program in the last few years, and when we got into single stream for curbside collection, we weren't emphasizing it to businesses at the time, but now if businesses do want that service, it's available to them. And there might be a charge, but that's something they'd have to talk to their hauler about.
Okay. All right. And I know that we have 2 recycle bins that are put out every week and are quite full. So that's a great thing that we have here also at the station. Some of the other things that you recycle too, you offer pesticide, herbicide, and egg plastic recycling.
We do. We've just gotten into this in the last year where we were plastic film, egg plastic, which is like silage wrap or baleage. Or even if a business isn't necessarily tied to agriculture, but they have a lot of plastic film, give us a call and we'll see if that can also be recycled. Recently, we started picking up plastic from Dynamic Homes, and hopefully that's we're able to get a lot of their plastic recycled as well.
Does that include like boat wrap? People that have stored it over the winter?
That's a great question, and it does. It includes boat wrap. It includes film from greenhouses. It's a certain type of plastic And if we find out what it is, or we can go back to the manufacturer and find out how it's made, and if it fits the criteria that this company will take it, then maybe we could start bailing it up and getting rid of it.
And I've asked Sandy this question too, but with plastic bags, you get like bird seed or, some of those bigger plastic bags, and they have like the recycling triangle, like they say 5, but it's not the same kind of plastic you can recycle in, like with plastic containers, is it? Or are those able to be recycled?
They're able to be recycled, but we just don't recycle them at this time.
Okay. They're not
plastic,
put in the plastic with the plastic bin.
No. There's 7 different classes of plastics,
right.
and the number 5's containers we can recycle,
right.
but not the plastic film.
So there's a different category for plastic.
They're made different.
Okay, but even though it says 5, because I think people think, well, it's got that little symbol on there and it says 5, so it's recyclable.
No, that if they have a quantity of it,
right.
Bring some in, and we'll see if it can be recycled. And it may be. It's just that we just don't know about it at this time.
Okay. Steve Skoog from Becker County Environmental Services in the studio with me this morning. And Steve, I also wanted you to talk about some of the other special collections that you have going on. You've got a special waste collection coming up in Cormorant.
Yes, we do. We do this in some other counties, but then also around the county at the request of the townships. And Cormorant, annually, they've been doing this type of a collection where we bring our household hazardous waste facility out there. So we'll collect hazardous waste. And the township actually sponsors a collection of vehicle tires, fluorescent bulbs, appliances, and various things that people in their area have difficulty getting rid of. And so that's coming up on June 14th from 2 to 6 at the Cormorant Town Hall. So that'll be Friday.
All right. So next Fridays, that sounds good. And then also the household hazardous waste facility is open today at the transfer station off 59 here in the Detroit Lakes area. But you also have collection and exchange happening in Osage.
Yes, we do. We have Becker County basically has 2 solid waste facilities. One of them is our main transfer station north of 59 off County Road 144. We also have a solid waste facility down at 2330 County Road 47 in Osage, which is just south of Osage. And the hours on that are 9 to 1 on Saturdays, and in the summer, from April through October, it's from 3 to 6 p.m. And so at that site, we take everything that we do at our normal transfer station, and we take hazardous waste there, and we do have a small exchange area in there, so people, if they're looking for paints or pesticides, we do keep some on a shelf there, so they're more than welcome to come and do an exchange if they want. All
right, so that's Saturdays and Tuesdays.
Saturdays and Tuesdays.
Okay, and then Tuesday is 3 to 6?
3 to 6 on Tuesdays and 9 to 1 year-round on Saturdays.
Steve Skoog from Becker County Environmental Services in the studio with me this morning. And just one final question. I know I've got a lot of stuff I got to get to the transfer station. And what are your recommendations? No, what stuff is actually like free? Like you wouldn't be charged if you brought it in with a load?
Most of the things, they're oil filters, appliances, scrap steel, extension cords, Christmas tree lights, any of the paper products, cardboard, all that stuff's free. Tires, on the first 4 we charge $1, and then after that the rate goes up some. If you can keep stuff separated, generally your fee will be a little bit less.
Okay.
So even if it's going in as some sort of a waste that you pay for, but it's usually at a reduced rate versus mixing it all together.
Okay. Good to know. All right, Steve Skoog from Becker County Environmental Services. Thanks so much.
Thanks much, Carol.
We're going to take a break and be back with Becky Mitchell from Becker County Museum next on Hodge Podge. Welcome back to Hodge Podge this Wednesday morning, June 5th, 2019. And we're back in the studio this morning with the Executive Director of the Becker County Museum, Becky Mitchell. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning.
Happy June.
Yay, it's June and the sun's out.
Yes, the heat is on. All right. And you have dove right into summer with a robotics camp this week.
We sure have. The museum is a hustling and bustling this week. We have over 24 kids in ages 7 to 14 working on interacting with Ozobot robotics and learning how to code. This is really the intro course if they have very limited exposure to working with robots and coding. And it's just so fun to watch them. They learn what I learned in about 3 days in about an hour. So it's really fun watching kids interact with them and learn and problem solve. And and then later this summer, we have kind of the stage 2 of that is robotics too. And then they'll move into more of the coding on the tablets. So still with Ozobots, but a different type of coding and far more problem solving. So we were blessed to get a grant from the Detroit Lakes Area Community Foundation to purchase those tablets earlier, or actually end of last year. So
okay. Well, people listening this morning, maybe tuning in and hearing us talking about a robotics camp at the museum. What's that all about? What does that have to do with history? But you're repurposing the history, doing things at the museum.
We've kind of latched onto this term reimagine. So kind of reimagine what you think of as the Becker County Museum, which doesn't necessarily mean we're getting rid of the old ideas. History is still the primary focus and the base, but it's Becker County history. And so part of that history is, today will be tomorrow's history. So right now in this county, we have several businesses that use robotics every day and have introduced those into their lines. So it does tie back to Becker County and really getting kids thinking about Becker County in a different way and exposing them to different opportunities. And so we've partnered with some of those entities such as Team and BTD to come in and talk about how they're using robots every day in manufacturing.
So that's very neat. And the robotics camp underway at the museum here in Becker County and Detroit Lakes. And Becky Mitchell, the executive director of that museum, in the studio with me this morning. So you're offering these camps throughout the summer, starting with this week, and then throughout the summer you've got more coming
so
up.
Later this month we have a nature science camp. So that focuses a lot more on bugs and water bugs you find in the air. Also, we have the fur trade exhibit that'll be wrapping up just before that camp. So we'll still have some of that carryover talking about fur animals and tracking. And so it's all about nature and science and what you can find outdoors in Becker County. And then we move into July and we have an art camp, which has been very popular. So again, all of these are offered for ages 7 to 14. And then that robotics 2 camp that I mentioned. And then we have a coding camp. So that works more on a laptop and doing some coding and how to make a little character do different things on the screen, if you will, and different activities, but also coding for a 3D printer. We have a 3D printer in the museum. So those that attend that camp will learn how to code for that. And in the future, you'll be able to come into the museum and kind of reserve space and actually print items on our 3D printer and kind of pay for the cost of printing them. But really great opportunity, I think, for those families and students and even adults that want to experiment and play with a 3D printer. It's a great opportunity. And then we end our camp season in August with a Lego robotics. So taking Legos and robots and combining them. So that too is filling up. All of our camps are filling up quick. So
very neat. So lots of things for kids to be active with this summer at the museum.
Absolutely.
Becky Mitchell, Executive Director of Becker County Museum, in the studio with me this Wednesday morning, talking about things going on throughout the summer and throughout this month, as the staff from the museum joins me each month on Hodge Podge, the first Wednesday of the month. And of course, you've got your brown bag lunches going on throughout the summer, and you've got 2 this week.
We have a special lunch. So next, our regular scheduled brown bag lunch, which would be next Wednesday, the 12th at 12 noon, is with Fred Flown, and he's going to be talking about the Park Hotel. His family owned that hotel, and he's been doing tons of research on not only that, but also other area resorts and what have you around the lake. So that'll be a great presentation next Wednesday, the 12th at noon. If you're not familiar with brown bag lunches, you can pack a lunch and just stop on in, or you can call ahead at 847-2938 and reserve one. We'll pick it up and have it there waiting for you. And then the following Wednesday, the 19th, we have a presentation on Norwegian history with Pete and Liz Matheson. They were, we tried to get them in May for Cinta de Mai, and it just didn't work out. So we're just extending it. We can celebrate Norwegian heritage all year round here in Becker County. So
I was going to say every day is Norwegian heritage.
Exactly. So we extended it into June, and I know Emily, our programs director, has been pulling out a few artifacts, Norwegian artifacts that we have, and we'll have those on display. So, yeah, another great brown bag lunch. Those are, free will donation, open to the public. So great opportunity for all ages to come in.
Okay, so when they go to those lunches, do you still have to pay the fee to get into the museum?
You do not. It's waived. Yep, you do not. So it's a great way to get into the museum and experience the lunch. And then, if you want to stay and look at exhibits, that's great too. And, if you feel you want to do a free will donation, we would love that, of course.
Yeah, so but some very great topics. I mean, Fred's Brown Big Lunch on the Park Hotel and other resorts in the area. Detroit Lakes was once a resort community.
It sure was.
And they lined Westlake Drive. There's still a few remnants, but that's going to be interesting too. So that's next week on the 12th of June, and then the Norwegian Heritage on June 19th, Brown Bag Lunch. Becky Mitchell from Becker County Museum in the studio with me this morning, and things going on at the museum. You talked about the fur trade exhibit closing on the 22nd, so that's coming. That's been a pretty great
It has.
exhibit.
We saw over 800 kids in like 3 weeks. The museum with school tours, so it was great, and it's been so fun. Yesterday with robotics camp starting and kids coming in and checking in, not only them commenting about how they had just been at the museum for that exhibit, but their younger siblings, their older siblings. So that was a lot of fun. But if you haven't had a chance to check that out, it is an exhibit. The Minnesota Fur Trade exhibit is through the Minnesota Historical Society. But we have really taken a philosophy with any exhibit that we get in. We try to do the Becker County component to it. And Emily's done a great job. Emily and Jen both have done a great job of gathering local stories, and Emily's done a great job of putting them together to really portray that Becker County, not so much the fur trade component maybe, but the fur trapping. And then the Cormorant Sportsman's Club did a great sponsorship to really get a lot of hands-on activities and items for our lower level for hands-on learning for kids. So those, of course, will stay with the museum when this exhibit leaves. So.
Well, see now, Becky, with your thoughts on reimagining the Becker County Museum you talked about earlier. So what I see is with the robotics and the little fur animals, you've got a lot of animals like that are kind of taxidermied. So we could combine the robotics and eventually all three legs comes to life.
I'm not sure if that's my greatest dream or my greatest nightmare. I'm not sure.
Or all the little varmints, all of a sudden their eyes light up and it's night at the museum once again. So I'm just reimagining.
There could be lots of fun. Maybe we'll get as far someday as like a Disneyland ride where you could sit in a car.
Not going to happen in the near future, folks, but just reimagining things. Becky Mitchell from the Becker County Museum in the studio with me this morning. Some of the other things that you're working on, of course, you're working with the Lake Detroiters.
We are. So part of the thought process of having Fred in June was because the Lake Detroiters are celebrating their 75th anniversary, 75 years of the Lake Detroiters Association. And they are having their annual meeting and a whole slew of activities on June 22nd down at the pavilion. But one of those activities is the reveal of a documentary. The museum helped do some research and taping and making connections with various individuals for that documentary, and that'll be revealed that morning, and then there'll be a panel discussion afterwards. But I know they have a pancake breakfast and a Rock the Dock event and all sorts of information. So I hope a few of those members are coming on to kind of promote that event, and if they're not, we need to get them on. So
the call is out.
The call is out.
All right, we'll get them on at any rate to talk about that great event. Yeah, so that'll be fun to see that. 75 years, wow.
Yeah, and it's really, lake associations are just really intriguing how they have shifted. I mean, I think the ultimate missions probably are still there, but the way in which they happen have shifted over the years from, now it's far more just educational and maybe a lot of fun, but they are a great lobbying power down at the state level for, different laws and lake protection that happen. And it's just an intriguing organization statewide.
Very cool. Becky Mitchell from the Becker County Museum in the studio with me this morning. And you mentioned the state legislature. I have to ask, we had Kent Eakin in following the wrap-up of the session, and I know that he's been working with you and along with Representative Marquardt on getting the museum project to build a new museum kind of in line for bonding money. So what do you know, or what can you tell us today about that?
Senator Eakin stopped in as well at the museum. They both have been just great advocates for us locally, not only for our project, but for so many other projects. We did not receive bond dollars this year. That is not a surprise. Mm-hmm. We knew that it was not a bond year, and although some bonding was going to happen, we were warned that it was going to be more infrastructure bonding. And so a delegation of us went down and did a day of lobbying. And really what we learned from that was you kind of have to do your time for bond dollars. And that's really where we're at. We've done lobbying. We'll be doing more lobbying. There'll be a tour of different sites this late summer, early fall. We're working to try to get on that list. Senator Eakin's really working hard on that. We've actually offered to host that event. So, hopefully that would be a great thing to happen for us to actually get that bonding committee into our facility for a day and really kind of see the challenges that we have. But we'll continue to work towards that. We've launched our campaign in the private ask portion. And so this is really the time we need people and businesses to step up when you're approached about the museum campaign, or even if you're not approached, feel free to reach out to the museum and I'd be happy to talk to you. But we really need to have our portion raised so that when we get to that situation next spring for bonding dollars, we're ready to go. And if the state can say, yep, if we give them this money, they're ground ready and we're off and running. So,
all right. Becky Mitchell from Becker County Museum. Becky, thank you so much for coming in and updating us on all that's going on at the museum.
Thank you.
All right. And that's going to wrap up Hodge Podge for today. Tomorrow we'll have folks in from the Detroit Lakes Public Library on Thursday's Hodge Podge. I'm Carol McCarthy, KDLM.